Okay, good night, good night, good night. Welcome to another episode, our session, our group, our get together, our brother time, our father time, or whatever you might want to call it tonight. Welcome to another time to gather together with fathers in unity, Fatherhood Talks. Tonight's topic, we will be discussing. Our topic is the it's it. I think it is a new village. It is a new village, and as you can see clearly from the cover photo, this is a very interesting look that's there. And so I see some people even putting it on as the back screen tonight. So that will really talk to our topic of that. As we're doing that, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Ron Osborne Williams. I'm a father of one. And you are joining us in Fatherhood Talks. One thing what I will say more than anything else is if you really want to get this content, you want to be able to join these conversations, you want to watch these conversations, if you want to just listen, go to our, like and share from our YouTube page. If you want to join the conversation, join us on Wednesday nights. So there we have it. I want to let everybody else begin to introduce themselves before we get the topic started. We can go with the as they say, age before beauty, or we can go with the beauty of the age.
All right, I'm gonna go with the beauty of the age. Thomas Alberry. I'm married. I have two kids. I should say adult kids, and 7 grandkids. 2 boys and 5 girls. And I've been with the program since 2012.
Okay, thank you, Brother Arbor.
I guess I'll go next. My name is Lawrence Jordan, father of 2, grandfather of 1, and glad to be with you gentlemen again tonight. Looking forward to the topic.
Okay.
Brother Johnny Gaspard, father of 2, a 23 and a 20-year-old. Excited to still be, as Ron often says, even more of a father now than I was when they were younger, because they need me even more now, it seems like. But I'm grateful and looking forward to speaking on this topic about taking a village.
Donald Jones, divorcing father of 2, a 12-year-old daughter, soon to be 13, and 11-year-old son, soon to be 12 in December.
Gene Robert, father of 2, 18, 26. One's 18, 126. Just glad to be here.
Cameron Simmons, father of 2, a 15-year-old and a 7-year-old. Glad to be here with you all tonight.
Okay, great. So I think that's everybody.
Nah, that ain't. I forgot.
Oh,
trying to get my backdrop on point. I feel like one of these kids are doing their own thing. But my name is Leonard Lightborn. I'm a father of 7. So I got a tribe of 7, and it's just an awesome experience. All of my children are adults, and it's just amazing learning new things and learning how to be a new father. So predominantly new children, because they're adults right now. So you have to relearn everything on how to really deal with them. So I don't regret a thing.
Well, your background looks like your village, your tribe. So I think we good.
So as we begin, even we can start right there. I think that someone, when they look at this, say, well, what y'all talking about the village? What is a village? Um, and I think it was really clear that we made the notion of new village, because we had an idea of what the old village looked like. It was the community, it was the community that operated. But when we start looking at the new village that we're kind of establishing, and if you can tell a little bit about from the picture, you can see people are joined together and connected through children, who are probably, and the one thing, if you can see the picture and if you looked at the picture, when you see the picture, you can see that the children are in the gap between those parents. No child is out left on the end, or left without barrier on both sides. And I think that's a very important fact that we have to come to the realization of. That's what our community is like today. Our community has changed dramatically. This is not the 1930s or the 40s or the 50s. We are now having new ideas of how relationships are established. Traditional husband and wife raise the children, wife raise the children. Those days are not long gone, but they're not the standard. And you only have one wife for your whole life, and only your one set of kids for your whole life. Those days don't exist. We now see multiple blended families, and I think it's very important as fathers in this setting for us to talk about how we have found, being in parts of blended families, how important it is to the development of that child, and as well as maybe some pros and some cons, some strengths and some weaknesses of that, and how we can maneuver that. So let's get right into this conversation about the new village. Anybody wants to jump in and give their shot about this idea of the new village, or even describe their own? Let me ask this question for you fathers who are practicing what we would consider a new village. Maybe give us some insight of how you see it, how and how that operated, for yourself.
Well, I'll jump in. Well, many of you guys know I'm remarried, so my current wife is not the mother of my two children, but the village of her and her parents and her siblings has added to the village of raising my son and daughter, our son and daughter. And they have as much of an impact on them as the original parents and the original parents' families did. My daughter especially has a very close bond to my wife. They talk a lot. Like, there's a lot of things that she comes to my wife about that she simply said she never had this conversation with her mama. And, and it may be that she's more comfortable because it's not her mom. So for her, it's easier to talk to somebody, as you well know. Sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody who's not related to you, who's not your parent, than it is to actually talk to your parent about it. So they have a great relationship. It's allowed my wife and I's relationship to grow and be even better as well. Beyond that, from the aspect of what social media has allowed us, the village is greater from that perspective, where when you, like you talked about, Ron, the village was your community and mostly your immediate community. When you walking up and down the neighborhood, riding your bike as a kid, you drive by Miss So-and-so house, and if you acting crazy, by the time you get home, your parents knew what you was going to deal with you by the time you got there. Social media has allowed that village to be even greater because many of our children are living a separate life, are walking on the streets of social media and coming home. And if they, and some of them, they don't want their parents following them. They don't add their parents as followers on their pages, but they'll add a auntie or they'll add a cousin, you know, somebody who they feel they're more okay with. And those people play a role in helping to guide and direct them as far as the village is concerned. So from that perspective, I think the village, although it may not be as we have historically known it to be, it can continue to be, you know, still very important and, you know, integral to a child's growth and understanding of what it means to be part of the family. My daughter was sharing me the other day that she, in her job, she has interns working under her. And she told them, man, listen, when I was growing up, my daddy said, every time I leave the house, I better act a certain way because I represent him and my mama. So I'm telling y'all, as my interns, when y'all come working here, y'all better do what you need to do because you represent me. Don't make me look bad. So it's one of those things, again, where the village played this role, and even what she's doing now and how she's reiterating and trying to live her life. So that's my take on what the village is then and what it is today.
Okay. And so kind of almost, you know, you kind of, Johnny, you gave a really kind of clear cut vision of your village. Now I want to get a little bit more deep because some of these villages can, yeah, I'll give you an example of what I mean. When I was doing this lesson one time, and I gave a picture, and the picture had a little boy, like an elementary school, maybe a preschool kid graduate. He had his little cap and gown, and he had his mom on one side, his dad on the other side, and then his stepdad on the other side, his mom, and his stepmom on the other side, his dad. And the picture caption said, "What does this kid have?" And dot, like fill in the blanks. And, you know, you could really see people showing this idea that this kid had so much more love, has so much more diversity, adversity, experiences, you know, based on that it wasn't just a mom and a dad there for them. And I think you talked about it great, Johnny, this idea of how that extended family, you know, normally we have just our extended family, but now you got a double and maybe a triple and maybe a quadruple, depending on how many, you know, kids are in the mix, how many mothers, how many fathers, and that everyone can come together as this community, but almost in connected in some way by blood, love. I would say blood love, not just blood, blood love. So, I know anybody else want to jump onto this? I mean, I know that Lionel's gonna hit it in the head. He's gonna hit it out the park because he's our resident. He's gonna be the resident expert about this idea. So, yeah, brother.
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, coming from a Caribbean background family, you know, we had the Aubreys and we had the Gilberts. And when I was in school, going to school, I had relatives at the school. And so I got, again, you know, like if I was saying, you know, you represent the family.
Sir.
And man, but if you act up in school, by the time you got home, there was a call that had already been made. So you know what was waiting for you. And the thing about it, this went from first grade all the way to 12th grade with me. Because we live in one end, we live about maybe less than a block from the elementary school, Coleman Elementary, and then Blanchie. We were only about a block from there. So like you're saying, one village and another village.
For sure.
dealing with my moms and her brothers and my uncles that were there to support me, as well as the teachers, both male and female.
Definitely.
Well,
Yeah. Come on, Superman.
okay. I'm just going, it's just my perspective or my experience at the village. I wouldn't even say, you study. I'm like, no, it's not a study. You can't, you can study your culture, but the experience far outweigh the study. And for me, historically, so we have to talk about the old village and the new village. Historically, the necessity of the old village was the fact that the relationship was the resources. And so the relationships made us very resourceful. And it was so important because we valued the relationships more than we valued the resources. As a matter of fact, if we're going to go really historically, whether it be pre-shore Africa or post-shore Africa, it was those relationships actually that took us again from slavery to from a bond or a bondage or captive slavery into a free society. And so everybody knew their lane and everybody played their role, and no one ever had a less valuable role. And so those relationships was a service to each other. Now, the problem with that and where society starts to deteriorate is when relationships stop being a service to each other and start becoming a status to each other. And that is a very dangerous precedent that we're setting right now. And I'm talking across the board because it's the very thing, it's the status that got us into slavery. It's the status of relationship that got us into slavery. If we're going to be truthful. Again, let me say it. It's the status of slavery that got us, or better, the status of relationship that got us into slavery. You understand? It was the service of relationship that got us out of slavery. That is historically true. And so when you understand and you truly value the integrity and the very foundational premise of relationships and function in the full service of it, there's no telling how great not only just your family to be, because you don't exist just for your family to be great. You exist for the world to be great. So if you limit yourself to just the circle of your family and only really raise your kids to create a better world than they met, it defeats the purpose. And so that's the old village. The new village, and this is why we have to really understand the education of evolution. And you got to remember, evolution is so unconscious and so instinctive that it usually happened way before it's studied. And so when you understand that there's a certain anxiety that comes along with losing your smartphone, you know what that anxiety is the equivalent of? And I can almost, and guess what? They haven't even done the study for it yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you now. You know what that study, that exact anxiety of losing your smartphone or your cell phone is? It's almost exactly the same anxiety of losing a loved one. That's just how much you panic. Because all of your loved ones is at the touch of that finger and it's consolidated. So what makes the technology the new village is because we get to see people in times, and I'm talking about in a reality that before the technology came into play, that it would have almost been non-existence. You have to wait to 10-year reunions and by happenstance. But now I get to see how my people are doing. I got to wonder how they're doing. I just can log on to their page and see how they're doing. And guess what? In some cases, don't even have to use the privilege of making a phone call. Not saying you should deprive yourself of, no, deprive them of making a phone call. You should keep that lively engagement, you know, for spiritual reasons. But the technology didn't do nothing but really made it a smart village, right? So I don't even know, we call it a new village, but I would call it a smart village because everybody that we love, everybody that we care about, everybody we want to care about is at the touch of a fingertip.
Amen. But before we move on from what you just said, Lionel, you said the status of the relationship is the negative instead of the service of the relationship. Could you explain what you mean by status of relationship to those who may be viewing? What do you mean by that?
The status of the relationship is when you value the resources a person have versus the relationship you have with that person. And so that starts to create the divide, the division, and it goes from top to bottom. Most people think it starts from the bottom to the top. I'm like, no, it happens from the top to the bottom, where all of a sudden your friends are not good enough now. You understand? So the people who sacrifice with you and struggle with you, and now the status make you almost, what do you call it? Degrade or belittle the struggle and devalue the struggle and the sacrifices you guys made together. And guess what? Doesn't say you have to always, and you're never really stuck in a relationship. The relationships are expanded, not exited. Gotcha. Or better yet, relationships are expanded and not expired. That's the word I should have used. Gotcha. And so when we stop thinking, putting expiration dates on our relationship just because we got a new relationship, you understand? Then that we start to solidify the new village. But right now we can't do that because we said, oh, you can't have this group of friends and this group of friends. And that's what I mean by status versus the service of relationship.
Gotcha.
And I'm just what Lionel's saying, and I think the issue is the cultivation. We don't cultivate the old relationships that we have when we jump into the new relationships that we get. We're more worried about creating that bond and establishing that bond, forgetting to cultivate what we had, because what we had previous was not only, like Lionel said, a status to us, but it was it was also a resource to us, if I'm saying that correctly. So we had that relationship because it meant more to us, not what you can do for me, but what you mean to me, right? And then when we find new people, and I think for that, I might be what do you call that? Look bad upon by saying this, but social media has caused this, that we see someone having fun and we think their life is always happy because that's what they're posting. So we start to try to cultivate that relationship with them and forget the ones that we struggled with, and how that meant more to us than trying to prove ourselves on social media. I think with that new village, we have to take a step back, and we have to remember not to leave the people that we had that came up with us, as long as they're not dragging us down. You see what I'm saying? Because, you have to understand your relationships, because they say once, some relationships are toxic. So you have to leave them behind when you're moving forward. But those that are actually non-toxic and still of value to us spiritually, that's what we need to remember and cultivate. Because when we fall down that ladder that we're trying to climb up, those people who we try to leave behind are the ones who are going to catch us. You got to remember that.
Hey, it's funny that you said this, because you said the word, one of the magical words, trigger word, toxic. And I think Lionel gave a really good definition of why those things become toxic, because we're not worrying about the service. Listen, it's really hard when you're thinking about service. Not only thinking about service, but we in my world, we learn that people who give are way more happier than people who receive. We have a society to make us think that I'm receiving, I'm happy, I'm happy. Yeah. But the people who give are way more happy, and they have a more fulfilling, happier, upbeat life. So we think about relationships. If you're giving to a relationship, if you're giving to these relationships, you're going to feel better about yourself if it's genuine. Gotcha. Because I'm not just saying giving it and don't leave out the part if it ain't genuine. Listen, if you giving to trap somebody into this little groove that they bills need to be paid, now you got them on the roll, because but anybody that told you, as I tell my child, hey, don't take nothing from nobody that you can't pay them right back in a week, because if you don't, they're gonna give you some more next week, and some more the next week, and the next thing you know, you're gonna owe them something. They're gonna be looking to recoup their money in one way or another. And so you think about what we're talking about this, and listen, we took this conversation immediately way probably past. We already took it to the outer layers. So I just want to bring it back in a little. I want to bring it. We took it to the highest level. I think we skipped the ground level. We went straight to the top tiers of this. But I want to come back to the really simple stuff that we're looking at. And one of the things that we're looking at, and that maybe can help some of the viewers understand the idea of how do I become a new village with my child's other parent, if I'm not already a village. How do I become that? And this goes, Lionel already gave us some ground rules, what it takes. But how have some of you fathers found the ability to do that or seen it done?
I think it takes a matter of realization. You have to realize where you stand with that other person, where they stand in the relationship of not only with you, but also with the child, and how you guys can, you're not, and a lot of times I think people have the misconception that if I try to get along with that person, that means I want to get back with them. No, if I get along with that other person, that just means I'm being civilized and I'm being human. I'm showing emotion and empathy. And that's what's important. And you do that in order for you to form a bond so that you guys can have the best possible outcome for that child. And when you do that, you start to extend that village that you have, because what that other parent has and what the resources they're bringing from their back end can only strengthen what y'all put forth for that child. And so sometimes you have to put away your selfish thoughts and your selfishness in order to be able to expand that child's world, not your world, the child's world and the resources that are for that child in order for that child to excel.
Good point. Good point. But I think, and I'm from a realist perspective, and I definitely hear what you guys are saying. But when you're in many of these relationships that end where the parties go their separate ways, or were never even married when they had the children, or were in these short-term relationships when they brought a child into the world, many of them are not very positive relationships. The two individuals themselves are still dealing with their maturity or immaturity in reference to who they are. And unfortunately, because of the relationship that they may have with other people, it makes it difficult to, as you just said, Gene, establish a positive relationship with the other parent without one of the parties in there thinking you're trying to get back with the other person. And sadly, we live in a country, in a society where they say men and women cannot have platonic relationships. At least that's what I heard the other day. The only way men and women have platonic relationship is if somebody ugly, and if one of the parties are ugly, and I'm like, what? So literally, it eliminates. If society is saying we can't have platonic relationship, then it creates a immediate issue where if I'm in a relationship or I'm newly married and I'm trying to still have a good co-parenting with the father of my daughter or son, I have to believe and have to make sure that my wife understands that me being nice or being cordial or being willing to converse with the other parent, doesn't mean I want to get back with the other parent. It just means, as you just said, I want to make sure that our child has the best of both worlds, which as fathers here, our goal is to encourage the growth of the village by being supportive of the child while not necessarily seeking to have any relations with the other parent if we are no longer part of their life. And I think that's the biggest issue that we have, is being able to truly let that just be about the children and not more about our relationship. And if it's toxic, it makes it even more difficult to have that village growth. Despite my need to not be selfish, and what's crazy is you may have one parent that's not being selfish. They want the positiveness, they want to co-parent, but you have the other parent that is being toxic and is making it difficult. What do you then do in that situation for the village of your child?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. Because I was thinking of something. I'm like, because you talk about that show you listen to, whoever those people are. I don't know who they are, but just on the premise of what you said, I think about immediately the N-word come up. right?
Mhm.
Not the N-word that we're normally used to, but I'm talking about the N-word and I'm going to apply this exactly to the people who had that particular narrative, what you just heard about people can't co-parent or whatever the topic was.
A platonic relationship.
It was as supposed to, I'm going to be nice about it and use this N-word because it was a very niggardly, and I mean niggardly. Understand? Here's a word, look it up. It's a very niggardly narrative. And see, we suffer from niggardly narrative. For those who don't have a thesaurus or dictionary, it's just a simple word for stingy.
Gotcha. And that's spelled Niggardly. Okay.
Correct.
So
it's a very niggardly narrative, and that's all we're suffering from is niggardly narratives. And so with that niggardly narrative that you heard, even though we exist in a totally different culture, and we know this when we show up to our kids' graduations with parents that's not there. We know that. We see them every year. Graduation shows up every year on our Facebook page. So it's like the conversation is not matching the situation. And I've come from that situation. And so, and remember, I got 4 baby mamas. 4 baby mamas, and I'm the stepdad to 3 additional children.
Gotcha.
You understand? And the thing about it is, and this is what makes it very niggardly. Because what we're saying, right, we have more love and tolerance for our jobs, right, than we do to manage keeping that job and keeping that relationship with that job than we have to keep that relationship with our child. Something is fundamentally dysfunction about that. And so when we're going to find other reasons to coexist in a racist society, as a matter of fact, we're not even coexisting. We're thriving.
I hear you.
You understand? And we're going to use that niggardly narrative to justify something that fail in comparison up against what you are in society and at your job. But when it comes to something that will work with you, you understand? We're ready to sacrifice that for the most minuscule, mediocre crap I heard in my life. And so when you got ignorant Negroes talking niggardly narratives, I think we need to get ready and kill that stuff from that kind of voice from society. I'm just talking figuratively.
Yeah, Lightborn. What you're saying is 100% agreeable. I think what happens is you have the people who are saying it are people who lack the trust. Because what happens is a lot of times we try to control, what happens within our own environment, but you can't control another person. They're going to do what they're going to do. So you have to stop trying to control other people, and you can only control yourself and your actions. You see what I'm saying? And so what happens is when you get into a relationship, there has to be a level of trust. Now, if you come to me and tell me, that, oh no, baby, I trust you, I just don't trust the other women, that's an ignorant statement to make. Because the other women aren't going to change who I am. It's either you trust me or you don't trust, or you either trust me or you don't trust me.
Yeah,
that's right. There's no in between. So what Lightborn is saying is 100%. For me, I agree with you 100%, because it's the ignorance that people have that tells you, oh, you can't be that person's friend because they're a woman. You know what? If I'm in a committed relationship and I really love the person that you're with, there's no way you can't have platonic friendships. You mean to tell me when I go to work in the social services field, which is predominantly women in there, what do I got to do? Go to my office, shut my door, and don't talk to nobody?
Nah. They ain't saying that, G. They just say most of the chicks you may be dealing with, they ain't dying,
Yeah, but that's an ignorant statement to make. You know what I'm saying? No. You said that, Gaspar.
I agree. I'm just saying people's mindset.
They have. I've heard that, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. I've heard that.
Yeah, that's a sad thing.
Oh yeah, you don't. The reason why no one's messing with her is because she don't look good. No, it's not that. It's just that she's just not your type. But the whole point of that is to say that not every woman you come in contact with has to be a conquest or a victory.
Yeah.
Some of them can be there because there's a true friendship there. You know what I'm saying? Gotcha. And so what happens is that the other person in that relationship with you has to understand that you can have platonic relationships. But then it also has to be, how do you say that? It has to be dual-sided. It has to be equal, because if you can sit there and have female friends, they can sit there. The other person should be able to have some male friends, and you have to trust them on that same aspect. Just like they have to trust you, you have to trust them, and that's it. Because go ahead.
Let me just put it just that you know, and then we're going into this because this is fruitful, man, because we're telling people, hey, they should try to develop this new village. How does it establish? How do you maintain it? How is it not maintained? But we also got to remember some of the psychological effects and where they come from. You know, when we start looking at these defense mechanisms, and they're broken down into clusters. You know, you're talking about the narcissistic cluster. You're talking about the immaturity cluster. You're talking about the anxiety cluster, and you're talking about the mature cluster. So you begin to see that people have to, they're working and moving themselves in some of those clusters. One of the, you know, with this idea that you can't, you know, and that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves, and I have a major problem with it, that you can't be platonic with somebody. Because if you can't be platonic, how can you be romantic?
Ooh, I hear that.
I'm confused on so every person that you come involved with, you only attracted to them because you want to penetrate them or be in some type of, that can't be, because guess what? You have a whole bunch of friends, male friends, men who are heterosexual men who love to be around their friends because they're attracted to them.
Gotcha.
Attracted to them, not in this romantic. See, and we always want to make everything romantic,
sexual, or
sexual, romantic. You are, listen, we as a group of fathers are attracted to one another because we keep coming on here looking at each other. Because if we wasn't, this is realistic. If we weren't attractive to one another, what would happen is, as people would as I see in many groups, in many settings, the person who's not attracted to the people in the group, they'll go away. They don't come around. But they'll be with some other people, and you'll say, why with them? Because they're attracted to them.
Gotcha.
You know, so that's a big thing that we have to begin to look at. But we really need to understand these defense mechanisms that are working in our mind, that many of our parents, our people getting into relationships, don't even know they have. That idea of that is a straight projection. If you think that, you know, your old lady can't be friends with her ex-boyfriend, and this is where we get into this village being established.
Correct.
If you believe your lady is with you, but she's longing for her ex, why be with you? She already been there, done that. You already been there, done that.
But Ron,
you know, holding on.
You have to look at, and this is key in some relationships. You got to look at how that evolved. Was I still with my ex when you popped up and stole me away? So that there's also a development in the relationship and how you came about into that sequence. And so if you look at that and you say, well, you were with somebody when we met and now you're with me, that insecurity is going to carry over to any other female that comes inside the picture.
Definitely.
Right? Because you didn't solidify anything with them to say, hey, you know what? It's because, you know, I wasn't happy or whatever reason, and that it broke off prior to me even establishing anything with you. You see what I'm saying? So that's the dynamic that you also have to look at in what you're proposing.
And all of those things impact the ability to grow this village that we're talking about.
Right.
Because if you and your personal issues that, as Ron just brought up, your anxiety, whatever it may be, those things that impact how you look at other people, whether it be a female or a male, you know, that will impact your ability to allow your child's village to grow. And at the end of the day, if the goal is about helping our child have the most support, encouragement, protection around for them, then the goal is, how do we make this village grow positively? Because you don't just want to add people to the village, because there may be some folks in this village that we all know that ain't good to you and good for you. So because we probably all grew up with some people in our villages that people said stay away from. Don't go around over there. So not everybody you want to grow your village with, but you want to be able to allow the village to be expandable. And that the only way you're able to do that is to take these insecurities and deal with them for yourself to allow your child to be able to blossom and receive the blessing that God has for them.
Johnny,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I must say that word you mentioned, grow. I'm an advocate for that word, and I hope every father that's listening and on this program is also advocate. If you guys notice in the society, we hear words like fight. Fight, you watch a telly, you watch people of all levels, and what you see is fight. But as one of our fathers said years ago, what are we fighting for? If we have the intent to have children or cousins or anyone around, the goal is to have teamwork. What I see today is a lot of I stands alone, team works together. If you take a look at other cultures that are around us every day, they're doing teamwork. There is a wide gap in terms of how we deal with day to day, in terms of financial, emotional, as Lionel mentioned, the narrative, social media. What are we getting from it? Because social media can be good and it can be bad, because we're on social media now. And as I deal with fathers, I hear stories. Like I get calls every day about shows, Married in 90 Days, and I get these calls of all these different kind of narratives. I'm fine. People have the right to choose what they want. But most times, no one is choosing the children. And if parents go through different changes, because remember, when you're 20, 30, 40, 50, we go through changes along the way. And so do our children go through changes. And I think more education is needed for all the fathers, for parents in general. And the society, we have to have the mindset to grow. Fight, it's just an abrasive word. And I'm on board with what you guys are saying. It is something needs to be done to make the change right now.
What, Rohan, and this is why I advocate so much. I'm not one of these advocates that, oh, everybody needs therapy. I think that we need to be able to understand that most of our defensive mechanism, only defensive mechanism that's not unconscious is suppression. It's because you consciously know that you want to forget about what happened. And so you're going to say, I want to forget that this ever existed.
Gotcha.
Whereas all the other ones are unconscious. And if you don't ever, many of us don't even live in our unconscious. We just react from it. We never even processed our unconscious. We never even thought about it, because listen, one thing about coming here to Fatherhood Talks, you will get stuff and it will help you every day build your life and build yourself. Because many of us, as Lionel said last week, are still disenfranchised. How can you be ever thinking about your consciousness when you're just trying to survive from the disfranchisement that you have received? You're not thinking about, oh, is this good? Is that good? Is that bad? You're just thinking about, how do I survive in this world that is against me? And I won't, and people say, oh, you're being radical against you, but it is. The war against everybody.
Yeah.
But exclusively our community, it is perpetrated. It's a difference. The world is bad. Listen, in the animal kingdom, there are some natural predators to other animals. Right. And then there are some animals who only attack those animals.
Gotcha.
And that's what we have to really, look at this. And sometimes we're not even in a place to be going into our unconscious. And so that's something that would really hit what you say, Rohan. We got to begin to grow, but we got to even begin to recognize what this growing even means. Because we have people out here saying, I'm grown, I'm good, I'm dead. Many of our fathers will tell you that, man, I'm a great father.
I hear that.
I'm the best father that I could be. Now, if you ask them economics wise, is he a boss? A boss, he'll tell you no, because he don't got all the money he wants. And he could make more money. Why don't we think about that? Like Lana said, why don't we think about our fatherhood in that same way? I'm not the best. I can be better every day. You know, because the numbers never end. You make a trillion, you know, I don't know what's after trillion, but you know, you make 100,000s, make 100,000s, you make millions, then you make billions, and you make trillions. Many of us still working on the thousands. Some of us got the 100,000s, like the big wigs on here. Some of us the 100,000s. But in reality, when you're thinking about most fathers, especially Black fathers, because don't delusion ourselves that we have this narrative that Black fathers are running things. Many Black fathers are surviving things. The ones that even have their stuff together, we're just surviving. You know, ain't nobody coming to pat us on the back and say you did a good job. We have to know we have to keep working to get that. That's why we want you to come here so we can pat you on the back and empower you and let you know that you're doing a good job and there's more that you can do here at Fatherhood Talks. Every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Like, share, and subscribe.
Go ahead, Lionel.
You're muted, like.
It's amazing you said that. I'm gonna tell you why. A friend of mine at my job, a pastor friend of mine, we was talking yesterday, and we was talking about navigating the nuances between the relationship of Jada Pinkett being stuck between her love for Tupac and her love for her husband, Will Smith. And this epiphany came up, and I'm like, wow. I said, here you were talking about two great men in their own right. And so to try to play, you really can't play them against each other, and here's why. And I think this is to Will Smith's defense. He doesn't know it. And he's a very smart kid. I mean, a very smart guy, very wise guy. That I give tribute to. I'm like, no, very wise. But then sometimes you need, and this is the purpose of the village, you need other people to be wise in your times of vulnerability. And so the two things, epiphanies came from that is one, that I said the only difference between Will Smith success and Tupac's success is Will Smith is a successful man, but Tupac is a successful movement. And so when you put a man up against a movement, I said, it's impossible. You can't compete with him. I'm like, number one, he's dead, but his legacy is solidified. And so here you are as a living person, still in competition with a dead person's legacy. You understand? That's the problem with the status versus the service, because he doesn't see the validity of his very own success. So he don't even see the service of his success. That's the problem. And so and now you got to remember this, and I got to put this caveat in here. Will Smith is the one who taught me that Tupac was a movement. It wasn't nobody. People were like, what? I'm like, Will Smith said it, but he said it so unconsciously that he didn't know he was saying it. That's why you can't take people for granted. I'm like, listen, there's somebody at any given time. You can't take your friends together. Anybody that God put in your life is going to be there, not for a season. And this is where we mess up at bad. They're not there for a season. They're there for a reason. But again, a poor ass narrative will think you that the friends that you made are there for a season. That is stupidity. Very asinine. But the friends that God put in your life and people God put in your path will be there for a season to be able to explain you when you don't understand yourself. And so I'm okay. I know there's friends I can go to work with, but I got to get a set of friends I can go to war with. Both equally as important. And so when I understood that, then I had to come up to the second epiphany. Now y'all gonna love this epiphany, because this epiphany is really good. I found out with the second epiphany that when it comes to success, because I love how people talk success, and since we're talking success and we're talking relationships, what happened is, and this is where everybody make the huge mistake, because I have never seen nobody, and I'm talking, I don't care, worldwide, that thought that they can come into take their success, right, in their professional life, right, and use that success to dominate in their personal life, and they failed every time. And so when you realize that, that tells me this epiphany, that love is the most equal playing field in the world. And if you think you know too much, you can never dominate that. You will never conquer it. I don't give a damn how much money you got. You understand? That's the most equal playing field in the world that will make a billionaire feel like a pauper, because there's one success he can't dominate. And so when we understand the relevance of love, then we'll start to understand the science of the village.
Who passed the Lightbird? I mean, Lionel Lightbird, thank you very much for that. And you gave a perfect example. I mean, in the last couple of years, we've seen several billionaires get divorced and had to give up a whole lot of their money. So clearly we understand they fell short despite their financial ability to buy everything and anything that they want. Love still didn't work for them in that particular scenario.
We have even a better example of looking at what's his name? iPhone.
Steve Jobs?
No, Bill Gates.
Steve Jobs.
iPhone, yeah.
It's Steve Jobs in the relationship he had with his daughter.
Gotcha.
And the relationship he had an okay relationship with the child's mother, but he wasn't interested in being a father.
Yeah.
But he was a brilliant creator of technology.
Correct.
And it was, and I don't know the whole. I'm basing this on the little movie I seen, and how they, that could be all scripted some way. But there was a point in that movie that you see him realize that his daughter was a great creation that he had developed, and he needed to start, focusing and putting some energy into that compared to the other things that, hey, here's the check. Wait, she want to go to what school? Okay, just give her the money. Don't bring her up to the office. I don't want to see her. I want to be around her, because that's how serious the guy was about this stuff. But again, these are the things, we have to really begin to look at is, we don't see them. Sometimes they got to be shown to us.
Yeah. And it's so crazy as you say that. In some instances, we leave our children to be raised by the village. And in doing so, we are doing them a disservice, because the child then looks at you as someone that abandoned them. So now we have, listen, it's so crazy. The village raised you, grandma, granddad, aunts, uncles, but they saw you all the time. You just was never involved with their life. They seen you come around occasionally. They heard about you over there with your other family, but you never were involved with them. So you left them with the village because the village was going to take care of them, which it did. Raise a very intelligent, smart, educated person, but still dealing with issues that Ryan talked about that are unconscious of abandonment. So now they go into a relationship and make choices that are hopefully going to impact positively or take away from that abandonment feeling, even though the village raised them. So we talked about the positives of the village and what it can bring to the table. But oftentimes we, not intentionally, but we just don't see the negatives that can come by just being raised by the village and not having that father or mother involved in raising the child as well. So I just wanted to, give that other side of the story of how when it takes a village to raise a child, the impact that comes with it.
And you know what? Here, you said that, Johnny, and I think here's an important part that we kind of let go to the wayside. I study a lot of stuff about African culture, African tribes, and one thing someone said to me one time in a debate, discourse, that they in Africa, the men and women don't socialize. They're not together. They're in their own groups, and so women do what they want to do, and the men. And I said, well, that's not true. The men are still the fathers and the leaders as partners in that community. Yeah, they're with themselves, but the women look to them for wise counsel. And for many of us, we have to be here for wise. A lot of times we miss it when it comes to wise counsel.
Yeah.
And so when you say, here's a problem what's going on in the school with the child. You know, me and my husband have talked about it, but you, his father, you got his genes, his traits, his genetic traits.
Yeah.
What do you think about it? Oh man, y'all go ahead and handle that. I'm busy over here. And that's where we lose, because here, imagine the other village partner, father, how he perceives that you are too busy for your own son, but he's not too busy for your son.
Your son. I hear that.
You know, we start talking about, then it become respect. Like what respect I have
Correct.
for this other father, this other man, this other one. And I'm just saying men, but that's across the board. Men and women do the same thing when it comes to these things. But we're talking about father. We're talking to you fathers, that we have to begin to know we need to be present. Now, I ain't saying we got to have all the answers, but we need to be able to lead with our input, because that's what a lot of times, you ask a woman, I've been asking them, I asked. You know, when you say, hey, what you really want? And when they say they want a man to lead them, they don't want a dictator. They want somebody who is there that's dependable, who will work through what's really going on, not just cop out and say, man, you go ahead and take care of it. I gotta get back to the court. We got this ball game tonight. Gotta get to the court. The game coming on at 8 o'clock. We can talk about this tomorrow. They want somebody who is there. And we got to think about that, fathers. We have to really think about, are we really there? Ready to lead with not just our partners, because we partners with somebody sometimes that we're not partners with. Every person you got a child with, father, you partner with them if you want to be partner or not.
Okay, because I was wondering what he just said. I'm partner with him, even if I'm not partner with him.
Yeah, you partner with him, and that's where a lot of this immaturity, I think, sometimes comes in, is that people saying, "Well, we're not together, so we're not partners." No, Jack, no, Doc. Y'all still partners until, you know, the sad part ain't y'all deaf to do your part, but it's y'all partners to death do your part.
Yeah.
But you know what, Ron, we have to, because I think I was doing a history down here in Miami. We was doing this history, some type of history narrative or reshaping the narrative, whatever the case may be. And what I realized was we were too heavy on the disparities, right? And so we was more defined by our disparities than we was by our own accomplishments. And so when it came to explaining the disparities of our culture, we were top heavy on that. But when it came to explaining the successes, you understand, of that, then we fell short. It's like a person with a lot of complaints but no solutions. And so when your narrative is complaint heavy, you understand, when does the narrative change to make you first, because you gotta always start by strengthening you first, solution heavy or solution based, and then you can become strategy based. Again, all strategies is just an organized solution. That's really it. So with that, what I learned, because we're talking about the village. And so what I have to do is understand people's strengths and weaknesses. And even that guy may have a attention, I want to call it attention deficit disorder, but his priorities may not be straight. You understand? Sometimes a simple strategy like a continual or consistent ask, you understand? You can ask long enough until it can click in him that it becomes an assignment. Mm-hmm. But sometimes an assignment have to start with an ask. And the problem is we don't know how to use strategies, be very strategic when it comes to our people, because we're deficit based. Our narrative is deficit based. Our whole history, when you explain it, and let somebody come in and say, no, that's not true. Y'all been up against a lot, but y'all overcame a lot. And we have got to be more than a theory. It has to be a shared strategy. But the problem is we failed at the narrative of that strategy of we shall overcome, or better yet, we have overcame a lot, but it got to be more than a song. And so with that, when you start to be very repetitive in your ask, and I'm like, that's one thing that's indicative on what you need. You still have an accountability and a responsibility to ask, even I don't care how crappy that person may be. You still have that responsibility and accountability to, guess what, get what you need by a simple ask. And then you keep on asking. It's the same thing how you do children. You ask until that ask become an assignment, so they don't have to know to go take out the garbage anymore, because guess what? It done resonated. It became the assignment, and they took it on and embodied it, and then they started taking out the garbage can without you asking. Well, the same thing works in adult relationships. We have to, we're too arrogant and educated to ask. We think most of the time they should know because they're grown. I don't even know what the hell is that. You understand? You're going to grow all the way to the grave. Nobody's ever that grown. You're going to always make mistakes. But what you want to do is thank God that you have a village around you strong enough to catch you when you make. I mean, Lord knows I make a lot of mistakes. And I got a lot of loving and tolerable people that will correct me on those things. Remember what I told you? I would rather you kick me in the ball than stab me in the back. And so we have that relationship culturally. That's the advantage. That's not a disadvantage. We have a relationship where we can survive most arguments. Most cultures can, but we don't talk about that narrative. You understand? We're passionate about each other. We're rejecting each other. It's almost like catastrophic to us, because guess what? The relationship at one point was the only resource that we have, and we still feel that anxiety historically about that. And so we panic when we see, hey, we have to be away from each other, even though we preach being away from each other. You understand? And so it's a lot of things that a narrative that have to be retaught, retrained, and refocused, so we can, guess what, encourage and empower the whole village. Because if you're not empowering the whole village, if somebody is insignificant in that whole village, I think it was this narrative, but I can't remember the saying about you're only as great as the weakest link.
Yeah.
There's no weak links. But if your narrative said they are a weak link, your culture's already conquered.
Amen.
You know, and that brings me to something, and I don't know if it was mentioned because I was having some technical difficulties, but how should your village look? How do you prep your village to be successful? Because, you know, we've done a lot of talking about the village itself, right? But what are the key components of your village? And I think that people need to start looking at what are the key components of your village, because you have to have people who are there for resources. That's your organizations within your community and everything else like that. Then you're also going to have those people who are there to carry you, like Lightborn was saying, who are going to kick you in the balls instead of stab you in the back, because you need that wake up call. You know what I'm saying? Something you really need that wake up call, because you can't have everything sugar-coated for you. You have to eat, you have to take some things just raw, and that's it. And so I think once you start understanding what our village should look like, then you can start having a more successful village and a more successful environment around you, so you can elevate one another and not pull each other down like crabs in a barrel.
I like that. I like that.
Hey, but Gene,
Yeah.
maybe crabs in the barrel not pulling each other down. Maybe they're trying to pull each other out. And that, I think that's what Lightborn, I think that's what Lightborn is getting to, is that we do, listen, and I say this all the time as a strength-based therapist who operates. Every time I speak to somebody, they speak in the negative. They don't think of any exceptions to what we have. Like, you know, like in the old days, they would say, oh, you poor. Yeah, but we all together. So instead of focusing on us being poor, we not poor at all about getting family and the family being apart and being all together in one place. And I think that's just I don't think that's a issue. I think it's something that we have to begin to rewrite the narrative in our communities.
Right.
For us to say, let's look at the positives, or not even the positives. What I call it is the exceptions to the negative. What's the exception to that negative? Because there's some exceptions.
I don't disagree with that. crabs in a barrel. Crabs in a barrel for me is one pulling each other to get over the other. But if you really want to be a tight community, you know who I look at? Ants. Ants will get together and form a bridge to get across a river. They'll hold on to each other to float on a lake in order for survival. They're unified when they need to be unified, and they march in a certain order and understand where they fit in their society and where they fit in their village and their assignments that need to get done in order to be successful. So when I think about that, I'm thinking about ants. I'm thinking about that type of mentality, and that's what you're looking at when you want to be successful.
I again, at the end of the day, we're here at Fatherhood Talks. The goal is about how do we do this? How does this village work for our children? And obviously we have to play our part in making the village work so that it would work for our children.
Yes,
everything that's been said here tonight has been essential to that. The one thing that Lightburn was talking about in reference to his explanation earlier, when he talked about the status of the relationship versus the service of the relationship, and then even when he came back around the second time and gave the description about the Will Smith and the Tupac difference, those are still men that we both look up to, that are both looked up to in this society. Some may see one as being different in their mindset and what they do, but they're both part of the same village that has helped us get through many things, whatever that may be. As all, because most of us here have grown up listening to their music, because I think both would have been 50 something years old at this point in their lives. So for all of us, they have made some impact. If you were, maybe not Rohan down there in Jamaica as much, but the rest of us, here in the mainland U.S., Rohan, I'm messing with you, dog.
Oh, hey,
in the mainland U.S., we might have heard of them more. So again, they were all part of the village that helped raise us in reference to the music that they created. So I just think that as we continue with the positive aspect of what the village is about, as long as we stay focused on that, I think we can continue to teach fathers what it means to help grow the village positively, because unfortunately today, many of us are in these blended relationships, blended families, that many of our children aren't being raised in the house with both parents that brought them into the world. So how do we still give our child everything that we have, even though we're not there 100% of the time? And as they get older and don't, quote unquote, need us as they once did when they were younger, how do we still allow the village that we have once formed around them continue to support them? And I think as long as we stay focused in that, we can continue to be great at what we're doing here as fathers.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying, Gaspar. Like, okay, so for me, we've had a lot of discussion, but what does a healthy village look like?
Gotcha.
And so for me, a healthy village is having those resources that you can pull on, from not the people around you, not necessarily just the people around you, but also the organizations within the community.
Correct.
Using social media in a different way as a means of reaching out, instead of trying to showcase all the highlights.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying?
Showing out.
Right, instead of showing out. So if you truly use social media properly, and like Lightborn alluded to earlier, because everyone's with that cell phone, everyone's at the touch of a fingertip, then when there's an issue, you can reach out on social media to those around you to say, hey, look, I'm having this issue. What do you think? How would you handle it? What do you think? What's your process? And you can get a lot of different ways to answer the same question. And so, for me now, I'm looking at, let me tell you what a healthy relationship or what a healthy village should look like. And that, for me, that's part of it, is having that outside resource, using social media to help educate you rather than looking at what everybody else is doing and wishing you could be a part of that. You see what I'm saying? So, for everyone else, what does a healthy village to you guys resemble?
Well, I'm going to comment on that healthy village. As a health advocate, it's time for us to reset. I'm speaking to all men who are watching this program, men who may watch it 10 years later. Sometimes we got to press that reset button. Stop means what? Stop, think, observe, and proceed. there are many things that are high amongst men. I believe men should control the temperature in the room. Many times we tend to make it real warm, but you need to control the temperature. Sometimes may have a partner who may have certain emotions and behave certain way, but men, whatever degree you are, whether you're a judge down to a janitor, there's certain things that men need to do. There's certain things we need to listen, act, and do what we need to do for our families. And this doesn't go for colored men; it goes for all men. You know, you guys know I'm the numbers guy. I like to talk about numbers. When you look at 93% of inmates in prison are men, something is wrong with that. Why are these guys in prison? 93%. Now, keep in mind, they are of value, but they are not of value to their families. They are value to the prison system. Someone is benefiting from that. I get it. We want to provide. We want a nice car. We want our kids to go to a good college. But sometimes we got to reset and look at the situation as is. And sometimes I use this analogy to many fathers. If you're in a situation where it's really, really bad, I use the word diabetes. Sometimes you got to cut the feet off or die. Sometimes we are in that corner. We got to make decisions that are tough, but it's the right decision that will save our families and save the community on a whole. We are as we go forward in today's times, it's become more trying. Let's not use that for a better word. Many of us are going to be tested. Many of us are going to be tested beyond the norms. But it's always the right time to do the right thing. That's what I want to say to all fathers. We're here for a reason. And keep in mind, as a guy from the courthouse, I use this term all the time. I live in the end game, because whether any father believe it, you're going to be an end game. So keep that in mind as we go forward. That's my take right here on a situation that I believe it can be changed for the better.
Good word there, Brother Rohan. It's always the right time to do the right thing.
All right, so as we get down to coming down to the end of the curve, I know we have some fathers in the room. We want to definitely hear something from their voices. I know they might not have the best. They might just be listening. They might just be. But we'd love for you at this point to just share something, say something, whatever you want. But because because this is, as much as possible as it sounds like sometimes we're a panel, but we still a group of fathers just talking. And sometimes I've learned this in my years of work. Sometimes we need to ask the person who's not talking to talk, and a lot of our problems will get solved. So we got places that all the people doing all the talking and the person that ain't talking, nobody asked them anything. So I'm sending out to the other fathers in the room. I know you're not on camera, but anything you want to say about this topic or anything actually at this time? Don't be shy.
I just want to say it was a great conversation. And it really does take a village. Villages aren't the way they were in the past. They are intertwined with different couples and things of that nature, but it was a great conversation. It was my first of many to come Father Talks. Great job, Ron.
Thank you for joining us, brother. We're gonna try to get this. We'll get this kind of platform going throughout your whole state, brother, if we can, and then we'll see the light. That's when the light comes. We know that they talking about they getting money, so let's see if the money come with the action. That's a whole another story. But a lot of times people don't get involved with things till the money come.
Yeah, so true.
You've been doing it for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
On the 26th year, they say they got money for it. Boy, you done got kicked out of the group. Anyway, so thank you for joining us, brothers. I just wanted to know that Cam is the he is the state chair for fatherhood from our fraternity. And that's I send him a request to come out so he could hear what we was doing, because as much as possible, we still trying to find the inroads to get more fathers to participate in at the levels. And if they got if the initiative is similar, you know, why create new wheels when you just put some tires on the one you have? You know, I don't understand that part. All right, thank you, Ken. Anybody else? Fred in there? Oh no, I guess that's it.
Ron, a quick thing to all fathers. June is Men's Health Month. June is Men's Health Month. Be free to check out some hospitals. Maybe they got some programs to talk about health. So keep that in mind. There should be a lot of stuff on social media about Men's Health Month. We as dads, we tend to put our health on back burner. So let's put it on the front burner for the month of June.
Yeah, and remember, still Father's. This is Father's Month. I mean, I know that it got overtook by Juneteenth. So I mean, but that means it's good for us because we got both Juneteenth and Father's Day for us. If that's your cup of tea, but I also think, as Rohan said, June should be the time that if you haven't done so, that you decide to go to the doctor. That old song, "Go See the Doctor," the Kumo D song, "Go See the Doctor." Not for what Kumo D was going to see the doctor for, but more for going to see the doctor for the other ends. I was at the comedy show this weekend, and the guy was saying, as you turn 50, everything different after 50. You have to really start what you didn't think you didn't have to do before. You really have to start checking it. And this is a great survey. I was on this other call in Tallahassee with this sisters group who did mother's health, and they were talking about the disparity in healthcare for Black mothers, right? And as I was sitting there thinking about it, and saying, wouldn't that be disparity for Black people in healthcare? But no, it won't be, because we don't go to the doctor. We go to the doctor in the ambulance. So we ain't gonna get. We're not caught in the disparity issue. We're caught into survival issue. We don't go see the doctor until they take us to the doctor. And by that, a lot of times by they take us to the doctor, it's too late. That's not being a responsible father. So again, I advocate. And listen, I'm not standing on the pulpit, because I got to go myself. I got to go down to the health department and get me some, free medical health care, because I don't have health insurance right now. So I got to go and do what I got to do. But also that means it's a struggle. And I say this to you, fathers, it is a struggle, because there's nothing given to you guys free. They get your wife, they get your baby mama, you get your child mother, and your child all kinds of stuff for free. But you're gonna have to go to day labor, get you a couple assignments, day labor, and to go see that doctor. But go, because it's better to go see the doctor and be here than to go there in the ambulance. When you go in the ambulance, it's not likely that coming back out sometimes.
And it's so real right there.
So with that being said, nothing else want to be said, because I want us to make sure we get right out of here right on time. I just want to just tell you a little bit about people, some questions concerned about last week's show. The last week's show got edited. Well, it got banned.
What?
Yeah. So
you ain't tell us that.
No, you definitely tell us that.
So it got banned. I had to go in and fix it. I should have just showed the Tupac video to us and not the audience, because people call copyright on us saying we're trying to use the Tupac video. And so sometimes I got to remember that you got to just show a still picture.
You show too much.
Yeah, I showed too much. It was too, and so then we got jammed all I had to do is go back. And this is a great part about this YouTube setup. It's easy for users. I just had to go back and say, hey, take out the part that was a conflict.
Gotcha.
And so it edited it itself. So if you find that when you're watching, if you're watching, you may see like a little flip and then flip to something else. That's because of the editing of the video. I look like something we talked about and then it's not there anymore. But you know, that's
we controversial.
Yeah, demo. Yeah.
But that's good trouble.
Yep.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I just want to say one thing real quick, if I could. I know I've been absent, but I just want to thank you, brothers, because I've just been on the phone for the past hour and a half with my son, doing a real fatherhood talk. And it is amazing how much you learn from what we talk about every week that I actually applied to our conversation. So people don't understand the depth that we get to sometimes and how you can apply that. And I found myself applying that to our conversation. I still got to get back on the phone because he's in a little mini crisis, but it ain't nothing that a father can't deal with, you know, but that's what Fatherhood Talks is all about. So I just wanted to thank you, brothers, and just for being there.
Oh, you're welcome back. Man, listen. I wish I could have some hair so my hair could look perfect like LJ's white joint right there. Like I'm talking about his joint is perfect. Like he had, you know, when you were younger, you had a fro, you used to use the little notebook to make sure it stayed right. That's how LJ's look right there, man. Like he just left the barber tight. So yeah. I noticed that when you say that, LJ. I just want to let you know your hair looks nice. Still a white, you did a good job.
Don't hate.
That's right. There's also there was someone in the chat, in the live chat, comment said, this is I think that this is probably Travis Jones, probably at work. Travis would be at work doing all the fatherhood stuff. To all the fathers, to my fathers, regret comes when someone points out the problem with you and your parenting. Whenever decisions you make, stand by it. That's my advice. Plus, let's make Father's Day great again. Can somebody read my post? And he's right. I mean, and I think that, you know, the idea of I can be a cynical guy a lot of times. You know, someone say, well, you know, somebody say, hey, we got Black History Month or Juneteenth. Where's the other people's month? You say, hey, they have it every day. And that same cynicalness can be brought to us as fathers to say, hey, why is not a little bit more celebrated on Father's Day, whatever? Somebody could say, well, you're a man, it's every day. You get to be a man every day. And that's special. And I hear that and I can understand that, but that doesn't mean that we don't still need to empower our fathers.
Correct. Because
I think many of them shy away from being a father because we haven't made it empowering. We haven't made it cool. There's one thing in my mentoring young people are finding out they like certain attractions to certain types of people because those people make it cool.
Yeah.
You know, they like athletes because athletes are cool. But it's not until they meet the lawyers with their BMWs and their Rolex watches and they meet the professors, you know, with their fancy books and libraries, that then they think that those things are cool. And so it's really the influences that we have to share with people. And I think that's the big thing, the influences. So again, with that being said, gentlemen, we had a good night. We need tomorrow. We'll invite people, fathers on. You will find the information in the as you look in the comments. You can find how to get on tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. well, 6:30, I'm sorry, 6:30. We were having our private fathers only fatherhood talks. And we also be going over, so gentlemen, so you'll know, we'll be going on the next couple topics. So towards the end of that, we'll do our next upcoming topics for July. Probably look like, you know, what I got from somebody. I think names will remain unknown. Look like we got stuff to go all the way to August based on when I got a little text message. So we'll define that, look at those, and see how those can go into it. They take us to the next. So, folks, I don't have a topic for next week yet, but we'll have it sort of be a surprise. So make sure you're here at Fatherhood Talks. Gentlemen, repeat after me. I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of honor.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of respect.
I am a man of respect.
I say I am.
I am.
I say that you are.
You are.
I say that we are.
We are.
Championship
Fathers. Championship.
Yes, sir.
Hey, happy Father's Day, y'all.
Happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's
All right,
Day.
bro.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out
Father's
there.
Day.
And we'll be back. We'll be
Yes,
back
sir.
we'll be back next Tuesday, but we'll be here tomorrow night if you want to come join us. All right.
No.
Good
All
night,
right.
fellas. Y'all take care.
Good night.
Tell your friends, bring them on.